This is the second tutorial on the Lydian Schmidian concept, and if you haven't checked out any of my previous videos, it's probably a good idea to look at the first one on modes, the second one on modes, and the first one on this Lydian Schmidian concept. Otherwise I think you might be quite bamboozled, because it's not particularly hard, but it's slightly tricky if you haven't got a good foundation in understanding modes. In the previous tutorial I talked about the Schmidian shape, which was really a Lydian shape, but calling it Schmidian meant that we didn't confuse it with when I talked about modes and also voicings that reflect those modes. Why have the Lydian Schmidian shape at all? Because it's a good set of 4 notes that sounds pretty cool over various chords. And when I was looking at the shape in the last tutorial, I was referring to a parent scale of C major. So it was the same shape with different chords. In this tutorial, what I'm going to do is take one key area, that's G. So I actually did a similar idea in my second tutorial on modes, where I don't change the actual keynote, which is G. So I'm building all these shapes from G being the root of the chord. So I'm going to demonstrate that. The first chord I was going to do was going to be the Dorian on G. So I'm not going to bother with the first mode, the Aeolian, because, as I said, it was the 4th and it makes it quite tricky. So it doesn't really have any use. So I'm just going to go straight onto the Dorian mode. So G Dorian, if you remember, that was a scale that went like this. And the chord was G minor 7. I'd say pretty, well, not all of them, but many chords in jazz that say minor 7, it requires the Dorian mode if you're approaching it modally. So the Lydian Schmidian shape, or the Schmidian shape as I've renamed it, when you have it on the Dorian mode, it starts on the minor 3rd. And the notes are B flat, D, E and an A. At this point it might be useful to just deal with one key. You like the sound of that, right? What's it like in C? I'm going to go to C. I'm going to play that Schmidian shape on C. So I know C is the keynote. I've just said the Schmidian shapes on the minor, it starts on the flat 3, that's an E flat. So you could play around with that, and then you could actually work through all of the keys, maybe going around in a cycle of 5th. So we've just done the G, we've done C, let's go to F, the last one I'm going to do on this particular mode, F. Lydian Schmidian, or Schmidian on F. So I know it's the minor 3rd, so I'm going to A flat. And there's that shape. So we've got quite a lot of F minor chords, maybe in the background. And here's the Schmidian shape. And so on. So you could just pick a specific mode and work through that. Alternatively, you could go through them all. So we got to the Dorian. The next one is the Phrygian, which is less common, I'll have to say, but it's worth having a go at that one. So the Phrygian, this was the scale. And we were doing this kind of shape to give you the sense of it. So the Schmidian shape, when it's the Phrygian, it starts on flat 2, which is A flat. As I said, that's not so common, that particular sound. How do you know that? Well, I've just done the foundations in the previous tutorial, but I think, to be honest, you just need to know that when you're playing a specific chord that you can do that shape starting on a certain degree of the scale. It's kind of, you just got to learn it basically. But I would probably concentrate on the ones that are really common, so like the Dorian, and we'll come to the Mixolydian, and obviously the Lydian would be a useful shape mode to practice that shape on. So at that point we are on the Lydian. So the Lydian on G, that's fairly self-explanatory. The next one would be mixer Lydian on G, so that's a G7 chord. And the notes would be starting on the 7th. So it's always the same pattern of notes. Goes up a major third, then a tone, and then a fourth. So you really need to know that shape. So that's on mixer Lydian, and as I said, mixer Lydian, like Dorian, is very common. So you could go maybe to C. So if I was doing it on C, I'd be thinking C7, such as in a blues, and I know that the Lydian shape starts on the 7th. So. D7, so the Schmidian shape would be starting on C, and then back to G. A little tip here, if you play piano, a lot of these Schmidian shapes are actually good for playing dominant 7th chord. So this is the Schmidian shape on C7, for instance, B flat, D, E and an A. It's a great voicing for C13, but as this isn't just for pianists, I'm not going to stay on that idea for too long. But anyway, that was just something I've noticed. The next mode is the Aeolian, so if I do that from G, that's going to be... And much like the Dorian, you'd have a G minor chord behind you. So the Schmidian shape on that would start on the flat 6. That's less common than the others, so I won't dwell on that one for too long, but that starts on the flat 6. The Locrian might be quite useful if you wanted to play a minor 2-5-1 sequence and maybe a ballad where you're on chord 2 for a long time. So the Locrian on G would be this, as explained in previous tutorials, and it would have this sort of chord behind it. And the Schmidian shape would start on the flat 5, which is D flat. So I'll give you an example. So if we did a minor 2-5-1 to F minor, you could have this Schmidian shape starting. I didn't continue it obviously because it was functional and I went to chord 5 and then chord 1, but for that chord 2, which is the half diminished, that's where it was useful. Just to finish off, just to show you how you can use these shapes in functional harmony. So I talked a lot about the Locrian scale, Locrian, a Schmidian shape using minor 7 flat 5 in terms of it in functional harmony, but a lot of functional harmony has a major 2-5. So we take the sequence, maybe D minor 7, G7, C major 7, sounds like this. We could build shapes on all of those chords. So minor 7, as we know, when you have a minor 7th, you build it on the 3rd. So same shape would apply for G7 because that's the 7th, 9th, 3rd and 13th. And then when we go to C for the resolution, we could use C Lydian. Okay, so two similar shapes, and then we'd have to move the shape down to fit the last chord. I'll demonstrate that. A little bit strange that Lydian there at the end, but it proves a point. There is an alternative for chord 5. So chord 5 in C is is G. So currently we've got a Schmidian shape that starts on the 7th, but you can also start it on the major 3rd, and it has this effect, and it adds a lot more dissonance to the chord. And in fact, the chord shape, that chord shape is G7 So the effect of moving that Schmidian shape there would be so that's quite a sophisticated sound, I think, and that would work really well in the minor 2-5-1. So if we took a minor 2-5-1 in A minor, it's B minor 7 flat 5, E7 altered and an A minor 7. If we use that shape, that Schmidian shape starting on the 3rd, it would sound very cool. So it would sound like this. So here is the Schmidian shape on the minor 7 flat 5. So as I said, it starts on the flat 5, which is F in this case. Then when it moves to the dominant 7th, instead of doing our Schmidian shape that starts on the 7th, we're going to go to the major 3rd, which is a G sharp, and then we're going to do a shape on the A minor 7, which is basically like a Dorian sound. So we're going to start that on the minor 3rd. I'll just finish with a bit of improvising on that just to demonstrate the point. And of course I'm just doing it in a hand shape because I'm a pianist and I'm just holding my hand there, but you know, if you play, well, I can do it over several octaves. It'd probably be quite a nice thing to develop. If you play a saxophone, it's really great to go across a couple of octaves playing those notes. So it doesn't have to be in that kind of hand shape that I was demonstrating a lot of the time there. If this isn't clear, I suggest just going back and taking a nugget of information at a time. But I think I have explained things as clearly as possible, and hopefully you can use this Schmidian shape to make your improvising sound really cool.